Hey guys, Lizardlea here for 4 Heavenly Beasts, day 40. 40? It's day 80. Why did I have it? I need to do that again. Only me. Only me. In my defense, it's only now 6 a.m., so I woke up a bit early. Okay. Hey guys, Lizardlea here for 4 Heavenly Beasts, day 80. So there's the progress from day 79. I ironed it so it is flat and very crisp. Allow me to go get it. There we go. Okay. Alright, I need to just get on the chair. And now I'm spinning. Okay. So yeah. You can see my... Oh, that's not... This arm. You can see this arm. So the next couple of pages are the dragon's claws? Question mark? And more of his body. The other arm. Claw. Whatever. Okay. Yay. Very excited. It hasn't been this flat in a while. Probably going to take some more pictures just in case my other ones aren't as good as I think they are. So that does absolutely happen to me. Ugh. So, yeah. I'm going to go across stage day 80 now, not day 40. If I didn't leave in my outtake, it'll probably be at the end.
All right. So, I think today we should talk about Silo. We both really loved that show.
Yep. Silo is on Apple TV. It is, it's based on a book, I guess.
Mm-hmm. I think it's a trilogy, actually.
Yeah, I don't know how closely it follows it. But the premise is that these people live in a silo, like a nuclear missile silo, except much, much, much bigger.
The premise says there's 144 levels with 10,000 people.
Yeah, it's tremendously huge.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Wait, isn't it like a whole day's affair if you want to go from the top to the bottom?
or God forbid, the bottom to the top, yes.
Yeah. Either way.
Yeah, is a
Even,
big deal.
like the easier trip of going down is still a whole day's affair.
Yeah, and so the people who live in the silo obviously live somehow. They have a society. It's like a small town or city, and there's food, there's water, there's electricity, all the usuals. Then there's tech of sorts. People have jobs and they do things. But there's one rule, which is that if you ask to go outside the silo, you will go out. You don't get to recant. You don't get to take it back. You will go. And lo and behold, when you go out, it's usually it appears to always be a death sentence. Because there's this camera that lets you watch outside the front, and it looks, horrifying out there, like a blasted wasteland, and people will go out and they will clean the camera, and then they will, walk off
away.
And fall
Collapse.
over and die.
And they're in not quite like astronaut suits, but like that level of they are completely encased. And it's not until they're right in front of the camera that you can see through their helmet that, oh yeah, that is the person they sent out. I know him.
Yep.
Or, I know her.
So yeah, that is the rough premise of the show, and there's a lot of intrigue because of this. Because is the rest of the world why is the world this way? Is it actually that way? What's going on? And then the usual kind of conspiracy theory, politics stuff of is there a secret society or what's going on, and all this stuff that's happening and why is it happening. And I'm trying to be fairly vague because Liz and I both really like the show, so it's an easy recommendation.
Oh yeah, like I mean, like, there's death, but it's not graphic. I don't think there's, like, any major, like, trigger warnings.
I feel like there was at least one or two kind of violent scenes, but in comparison to everything else we recommend, no, it's much more standard.
Like, and my sister watched this show, and, like, she can barely watch anything. Like, the only other show I can think of that she's watched within the last, like, 10 years was that Fallout one.
Mm-hmm.
Because she falls asleep during everything. So, like, something has to be tremendous for her to stay awake for it. To the point, she started reading the books. That's how much she liked it. That she was like, oh my gosh, I want more.
Yeah.
You know, like, I want to read the source material, because usually the book is better.
Yeah. I feel like there's, like, one or two kind of violent, dark scenes. But again, it's mostly, that's not the point of the show, so they're not trying to, like, over-highlight it. And yeah, it's very interesting because they've been there for like 140 years at least, and that's an incredibly long time to be living in an isolated society. And the questions you're probably asking, if you're like me, are questions that they toy with answering but sometimes don't answer. Like, okay, well, where are you getting your energy? How is this place still running? How do you feed this many people? What is everyone, all those questions. They know you're asking them, and they're very purposely revealing the answers to some and hinting at answers to other and playing coy with the rest. It was very well done. All the performances are really, really good.
Oh my god, yes, the actors on this show were spectacular.
Yeah, and it's also just it's nice to see a well-paced mystery-ish show.
Yeah.
It didn't usually feel like it was stretching for time or anything. They managed to always keep what was happening next kind of, oh, this will be interesting, this will be cool.
Mm-hmm.
There
were a lot of aha moments.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that was spectacular.
There are narrative tropes that are maybe frustrating for some, but not others, in that, like, the way they tell the story kind of jumps from point of view to point of view. And through time, arguably, but it's all very well done, and you get, you have a good reason to be intrigued. I feel like if the show ended where it ended, it would be okay. I do hope that they can continue the level of quality and deliver. I have purposely not spoiled the books for myself because I don't want to be spoiled. I am skeptical that it can pull off a great ending, just because stories like this tend to not have the guts to do what I think is the better endings and whatnot. Like, there's a couple of different things I could talk about, but in short, I get, like, that a major portion of the story is about, trust and truth and things like that, and so, I suspect truth will triumph overall and all that in the end, which will be fine, but not my speed. But that's if they can even do that and do it well. But so far, they've done it well, so I'm very, very...
Yeah, season 1 for me was a 10 out of 10. Like, as is, if they have the same people, producers, directors, whatever, all come back, I fully believe this show will pull everything off and be great.
Yeah, I hope so. And again, I'm worried that the source material maybe drops the ball and then they're kind of stuck following it. Or maybe the source material is good and they deviate or whatever. Like, that's my big concern, is just following through there. But yeah, I mean, so far, it's got plenty of material to continue to work with. It's a really, really interesting premise. It's obviously, you can't just have a show that's about, like, why are we in a silo? Especially because these people don't really care, in a sense. They know something happened to the world because they can see outside the dome. Or, sorry, the silo. I don't know why I called it a dome.
I've seen the dome, though. That was a good show.
Yeah. But they don't know why or how or anything, and so the show is also about just the society that they're in and some intrigue that occurs there, which is, of course, related to the bigger mysteries. It's got a very, almost a film noir vibe of, like, a detective mystery and, figuring out who's what and whatnot. So if you like those things, it's way less. It's probably less messed up than most film noir.
Yeah, I was gonna say I have seen a few film noir, and I'm usually on the fence with it, and I loved this one.
Yeah, it still kind of is, though, arguably, in that you've got people trying to uncover a mystery and who can you trust and yada yada yada. It's not quite, but it shares
similarities and whatnot.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. Do you want to keep going on this, or do you want to move to another? Just because I'm
I
trying to...
mean, if people have gotten here and they don't plan on watching the show, I'm okay spoiling it for them.
Okay, we can go into spoilers.
But if you thought any of this was even remotely interesting, please go watch it. It is so worth it.
Yeah.
Like, even if you don't care that people are great actors, if you like a good story, if you like good characters, interesting characters that develop, like, so good.
Yeah. So yeah, spoilers in 3, 2, 1. Basically, the start of the show is this
Holston Becker.
Yeah,
he's the sheriff.
The sheriff, yeah. His wife asks to go out, and so he has to watch her go out and
then
die.
the camera, walk away, and collapse.
Yeah, and so he then spends forever trying to investigate why his wife went out, because she was definitely having a hard time, because they've been trying to conceive a child, and in an enclosed ecosystem like theirs, you have to get permission first. And they'd gotten permission multiple times, but multiple times they tried, and multiple times they failed. So
does it jump back in time, or does it open with her saying she wants to go out?
It opens with her going out, and
okay,
or actually it opens with
back in time.
it actually opens with him saying he wants to go out. That's the first episode.
Oh, and then we jump back to her going out, and then we jump back again to her like learning everything about the pregnancy and whatnot.
Yeah. So the short-ish version of this is that he wants to go out because he's been investigating why his wife went out, and that's how the show actually opens. Then we go back in time finding out why his wife wanted to go out, and how, for example, she discovered that when they take out her IUD, they don't actually take out her IUD. Like, they were preventing her from having kids, and she couldn't figure out why, and it's because, you know, they didn't want, air quotes, people like her having kids, which turned out to be people who were inquisitive / also maybe part of this older society of, like, knowledge. Because there's, like, in the history, there's a revolution that occurred where people almost killed everyone because they tried to rush the gate and open the door, and it would have killed everyone in the silo, and so those people destroyed all their history, and yada, yada, yada. And it's obviously supposed to be like, well, I don't totally trust the retelling of events here.
Well, especially because she learns that the IUD was not taken out because she rips... Okay, I guess that is a little... I mean, you don't see her actually do it, but you see her holding it, and, you know, she's got a stab wound.
Yeah.
Because she cut it out of herself, and that's how she knows, they didn't take the IUD out.
Yeah.
It's right here.
Yeah, and there's a million other things going on. And so, either way, one of the big things that sent her over the edge was she finds an old hard drive, and that qualifies as, like, an artifact. And you can't have artifacts from before this time. It's like a, death sentence is applied.
You have to turn them in, and then there's a whole investigation as to where you found it, who had it, why they had it. And that person's probably going to die.
So
they hid it.
Yeah, she gets this hard drive brought to her by somebody, and she goes into it, and she finally figures it out, and it's got all this information on it, and then one of the things it's got is footage of what looks like the outside. And in the footage, the outside is beautiful and gorgeous.
And there's birds, and there's trees.
And so she thinks that, the world outside is actually okay.
And they've just been lying to us.
Yeah, to keep us in.
It's miserable in here. I want to go out there and be happy.
Yeah. So she tells her husband that if she goes out, she'll do one thing if it's good and one thing if it's bad. And I think she does the good thing. So he's like, okay, something's going on. My wife, for whatever reason, just walked out and either killed herself, or the world out there is actually not what we think it is, and it's good. So we now follow the husband trying to figure out what the heck's going on, and his investigation into everything. And long story short, he of course does go out, but he realizes that when he's looking through his helmet, that he's seeing the exact same footage that she saw, because he eventually...
There's like two birds that fly across the screen at the exact same moment, and he was... wasn't it like birds or something? It's
a flock of birds, yeah.
Okay,
so, like, he realizes that it's literally the exact same
footage.
So he rips off his helmet, and we don't see what he sees in that moment, and then he collapses next to his wife, and he dies.
Or, well, the people in the silo, what they see is he takes off his helmet, and he collapses next door to his wife.
Yeah.
Or was? Yeah, because the bodies are still there.
The bodies are still there.
Yeah.
So... And, like, there's, like, a ridge right in front of the camera, so like you can't see beyond it. Like there's like this little ridge that you can't see over because the camera's just looking at it. The silo's in like a crater of sorts, so you can't even see far beyond this camera. You can just see the corpses basically in the blasted landscape.
Nobody's gotten past that point.
Yeah, that ridge.
So all the bodies are just piled there. I mean, there's not that many. There's like what,
5,
maybe 7?
Yeah, something like that. So now we transfer to the next sheriff, the unwilling sheriff, because because she works on the reactor for the silo
on the first floor
at the very bottom, and of course they're treated like
garbage.
Maybe not total garbage, but yeah, they're not treated well, even remotely. They're not literally slaves, but they're definitely not like living nicely or anything, and they're taken for granted.
Yeah, she's the head engineer. And she's so good at her job that she has an apprentice that she has to train, because they're like, yeah, if we lose you, everyone in the silo's gonna die.
Well, it's not just her. That's the whole. That's the ethic down there. Everyone has to have a second.
Yes, but that's who she's training right now. It's her second in command.
Yeah. But that's not unique to her. Everyone down there has to have the second, because it's not that she's so good at her job. It's that everyone's job down there is so critical that you cannot have a single day
there
of...
needs to be someone else who can cover for you.
She does happen to be fantastic at her job, though.
Oh, yes.
Yes. So for some reason, the last wishes of the Sheriff Holston...
is that Juliet, the engineer, takes his place.
Yeah, and there's some various plot reasons for that because of what his wife did and Juliet and shared knowledge and people they know and yada, yada, yada. But the short answer is it's a massive surprise to her, too, and she doesn't know what the hell's going on.
Yeah, who was it? The mayor didn't want her to take the job, or she did?
Well, she was unsure. She's like, we normally honor the wishes of the previous sheriff. Mm-hmm. But, like, this is also weird. And then there's a lot weird political election things going on with the judges and all these other people where they're like, well, you know, it's definitely got a very judicial, like, Secret Service vibe of, like, well, they can just whisk you off and, you know, make you disappear kind of thing. Or at least ruin your life or get you executed or investigate without however they want. And again, like, it's obviously very authoritarian, but some of it is couched in the idea of like, well, yeah, it has to be because we all have to, like, our entire ecosystem is this, and all it's going to take is one person really screwing up to kill us all, in theory.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, they're playing with that both back and forth on whether, you know, what's okay, what's not, and you're never given a super solid answer on some of it. That's part of why I like the show, is that it doesn't... By the end of season 1, you don't really know what's going on. You know more, you know a lot more. They will answer a lot of your questions, but there's still a lot of like, well, okay. And that's kind of why it's interesting, because there's people who are doing objectively evil things, but it's unclear if they actually have a legitimate motivation up to a point of like, no, we can't let this knowledge get out because people will then, you know, do stupid things and we're all going to die. You know, it's very unclear why they're doing it. Like, there's still definitely some authoritarian level of, and we want to control people and make their lives miserable and power and whatnot, but it's not clear. And then I'm trying to stay away from certain spoilers, even in this section, about like who's actually good and who's actually bad, because half the fun of the show is not knowing who to trust. Who's on what side, what are their motivations, which people can we actually trust, which people were, you know, just using other people for their own means. That's a big portion of the show, and they do a very good job of bouncing back and forth with it and making you not sure who you can trust.
Yeah, they got me with at least one person where I was like, oh yeah, no, I trust them. Mm-hmm. And then, oh no, I should not have trusted them. No, yep. No.
So yeah, it's really good. I hope the second season's good. I hope it gets made. I think it's getting made.
It looks like it based on this. I've been seeing a lot of season 2.
Yeah.
So.
Is season 2 already out and we're behind?
I don't think it is it?
Where's the list of episodes?
Number of seasons 2. Number of episodes 20. So maybe it is, or maybe
Season 2, 2024 to 2025.
Last release January 2025.
So it's out.
Holy crap. We need to watch
We're either behind a... Hold on. So what's the end of season 10?
You mean
season 1? Episode 10 there.
Yeah, it's out. Season 2 is separate.
Oh, well,
I don't want to read that.
Yeah, no, you don't.
I don't want to read that.
So season 2's out. We don't know anything about it.
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited.
Yep.
I still want to finish Blueprints, though. All right.
Um,
So it sounds like you don't want to talk about Silo anymore.
Correct. Well, I was just updating my list, so I know that it's on our list of things we need to watch. Because Severance and Silo are both...
So good. Everyone needs to watch them. Oh
yeah,
my gosh.
and I really like that Silo is very approachable. Like, Severance is weird and maybe even, or definitely more dark in many ways.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas Silo feels like a story you've kind of seen before, told well, and in a setting you maybe haven't seen before. So I do highly recommend it.
I do as well.
Okay, what is next?
So, the next one I have is Chernobyl. It was 2019.
Yep. So, for those of you who don't know, Chernobyl was a real thing that happened, where a nuclear reactor melted down in Russia, and it killed lots and lots of people, and it was bad. So
Really bad.
they made a TV show that's kind of a drama.
Oh, they dramatized it. Like they in the show they have like one major scientist working with others, and that one major scientist was actually a connection of like 12 to 15 separate scientists, but they were like, we can't handle having this many personalities, and still fleshing them out.
But they do still give them credit in the show. And then there's a few inaccuracies. Like, one of the funnier ones to people is that, like, one of the easiest things to get right is what they named these 3 roofs, because they are roofs on the nuclear power plant, and, like, the level of radiation on them is, like, obscene. And they named them, like, A, B, and C, and they got the names totally wrong, like, mixed. They got A, B, and C, but they labeled them completely incorrectly. Like, they said roof C was the worst, and it was actually B or something. But, like, so there are little inaccuracies like that. But, I mean, if you want to know anything about the event, this is probably the way to do it. It is more than accurate enough. It is more than clear enough. And it is... I am one of the people who does think that society needs to find a way to do nuclear. If we want to do renewable energies and things like that, you need to do it. And you need to do it well, because this shows you the consequences of why. And we've learned a ton from what has happened. Modern reactor design can't do, in theory, what occurred here. But the saddest part of this is the most relatable part, which is the horrible, horrible politics of it all and the bureaucracy. Which, especially at that time in Russia, there was still very much a, like, well, I'm not going to be the one to tell them that this blew up or doesn't work. But at the same time, to, I believe it was Gorbachev's credit, if he had decided to be more politician, millions more would have died. Like, things could have absolutely escalated tremendously.
So much.
And that's pretty much true, and it shows that people are people, and there's major problems with that, especially in scenarios where denying reality is more important, or where fear of, like, telling the truth is more important than anything else. Like, oh, I can't tell the truth, I just have to say I did my job, I did it right, everything's fine. That can't be true. No, it doesn't do that. It doesn't do that, because it was all kind of tied up in the idea that, well, these kinds of reactors are perfectly safe, which is like the irony of the statement I just said, which, we've made better ones. Like, well, yeah, they thought this was a better one. And no, it wasn't.
No, it was not.
Now, we've learned a lot since then, and we need to continue to learn. But, yeah, I mean, this is a very, very, very good look at, like, just how incredibly sad and dangerous this sort of stuff is if not handled correctly. There are some truly horrifying scenes that are not graphically horrifying. They are later.
Yeah, there are some that are.
But it's just in the moment horrifying of knowing what's going on and knowing that they don't. Like, just civilians standing on a bridge watching things.
Yeah, as the ash is, like, coming at them and they're breathing it in and they don't understand.
Yeah, well, it's not even like
They're
ash.
babies.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it looks like ash. I don't know how else to explain it.
Well, no, they weren't even
Dust
within the...
particles?
Yeah, but I mean, they couldn't even see it with the naked eye. That was the thing. Like, they were just downwind, and it's just... It was a death sentence.
Yeah.
Especially in any area that was unprotected. So, yeah, I mean, it was...
the audience can see it. How's that?
Yeah. But, I mean, it's horrifying. And, but it's a very well done look at both the dangers of radiation and bureaucracy and stupidity. And I don't think any country in the world is immune to the kind of stupidity that was on display. And hopefully, I don't, there's also a lot of bravery and seriously made calls. Like, these people, the scientists, who stood up and said, like, no, we need to do something now. And the military, the people in the military who didn't play politics as much and said, no, we need to do something now, like risking their jobs, their careers, their lives, because it was the right thing to do, and in a very, very serious way. It is probably the biggest catastrophe in some ways that humanity's ever caused, in like a single, easy to identify failure. Mm-hmm. And it's just shocking how much of it stems from ignorance and stupidity and politics, yeah. Like, it's all from just stupid, like, oh, well, we need to do this bureaucratic thing, so make sure it gets done. And then just lots of, oops, this happened. Well, just make sure it gets done. Oops, this happened. Well, make sure it gets done. Oops, this happened.
I don't know how to do this. No, figure it out. Mm-hmm. Check your book. You need to know how to do this.
Yep.
Yeah.
And, yeah. So, I mean, there's nothing to spoil.
Yeah, it's a real event.
Yeah.
And there were absolutely moments where they did show, the fallout and actions of certain people. Like, one of the first things that, I had a big reaction to was when the firefighters showed up. Mm-hmm. And they have on gloves, they're firefighters. And this dude picks up what he doesn't know what it is, like a brick.
Yeah.
And his hands just hurt, so he drops it. He takes off the gloves, and he is just so severely burnt.
Yeah.
Because it was
graphite.
So radioactive that, his skin instantaneously reacted to it.
Yep.
And they all have Geiger meters eventually, right?
Well,
is that what they're called?
Geiger counters. And I was going to mention that anecdote, which is the perfect example of just the hideousness of what was going on, where they pull out their Geiger meters and they say, well, it's only like 3.2 Roentgen or whatever, you've probably seen the quote on the internet. And the horror of that statement is immediately called out in that, well, of course that's what it's saying. It's the max.
Yeah,
it can't go higher than that. We need to get a proper one. And of course they don't have a proper one there because, oops, it was gone or broken or damaged or whatever. But we need to get a proper one to see what it actually is. And they're like, no, it's just this. And so they tell, the politicians, oh, it's just this. And everyone thinks it's fine. And then, the scientists are screaming like, you can see it.
Mm-hmm. That means it's worse than you could ever imagine.
And that's like the sort of frustration I myself have dealt with in moments where it's like, no, this isn't the number says this. It's like, this cannot happen unless that happens. And I just deal in like data, data and analytics and nonsense like that, where it's like, no, this can't be all right. There's no way it could arrive here looking like this if it was remotely all right. And what they're seeing is like trillions of times worse, and that it's like you can literally see the radiation ionizing the air. You can smell what's going on. People are describing the symptoms. We have people in hospitals who are literally falling apart. Mm-hmm. I mean,
there was a scientist in a helicopter who was prepared to just crash land and kill all of them so that he wouldn't have to die from the fallout of being over the over the nuclear reactor, because he was like, if you go over that, we're all going to be dead within 24 hours, and it's going to be the most painful death you can imagine.
Yeah. And like,
and he got through to a politician, so they didn't do that.
Yeah. Like, they didn't it kind of puts into perspective, because everyone, maybe not everyone, but a lot of people are well aware of the dangers of radiation and how horrible it is. But mostly people think of like, long-term cancer, or maybe you think of like dying over weeks or something. But the point of Chernobyl is that like that event had the most radioactive spots on the Earth possibly for periods of time. Mm-hmm. And like, we don't even know what happens to you, or like when you're exposed to that, because it's so much radiation. Mm-hmm. It's insane, and it's going to just annihilate you. So yeah, it was a very sobering show, of course.
I cried a lot.
You did.
Especially because it is true.
Yeah.
And, they made me care about the characters. And, I mean, there was one guy, like, this was probably the most graphic part of the show. He's in the hospital, and, he's got the plastic all around his bed.
Mm-hmm.
Because nobody's supposed to be anywhere near him without protection.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, his skin is just sloshing off. Like, he doesn't have any skin because his body can't handle the amount of radiation he was under. And his wife, who is pregnant, gets into the room with him. And I think this was true, and I already knew it. She actually is perfectly healthy. She leaves that hospital and she's fine. Her baby is stillborn, however.
Yeah.
The baby absorbed all of that radiation.
Yeah.
And that was the thing. She wasn't by the reactor. Her husband was. But because she got next to him,
yeah,
she still absorbed it. Like, that, it's so scary.
Yeah, it's...
Like, it's almost unimaginable because you can't see it. But it's so fast and it's so dangerous.
Yep.
But I will say, my favorite part about all of this was something I did not know. I remember hearing about the volunteers who went underneath to try and divert, was it water?
Yeah, water.
To try and stem everything that was going on.
Basically, things were flooding, and if the flooding were to hit the reactor, it would, of course, immediately turn into steam because it's so hot, build up pressure, and then blow up like a bomb and just rain radioactive ash all over the place.
And it would have affected
maybe
not the whole country, but like
a significant part of the continent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
I had it backwards, you're right.
Yeah.
So, was it 3? I know it was 3 on the show, and it was 3 in real life too, wasn't it? Who volunteered, and they went in, and of course they had the Geiger meters, and they're it's going off, and they keep going, and they did manage to flip all the levers and everything that they needed, and it's so spectacular. All of them were alive up to a few years ago, and one of them died of a heart attack, wasn't it? It wasn't even cancer or anything. And the other 2, at least as of 2019 when this show came out, were still alive. Like, those 3 men volunteered believing
it was
that they
mission,
were on a suicide mission. And they lived decades. And pretty healthy from the sounds of it.
Yeah.
Like,
and again, it's very...
That was...
Yep.
That was, like, you hear about people volunteering for things like that, and it's so terrifying. Like, there were men who volunteered after Hiroshima, and I don't think it ended well for the majority of them. But, I just...
Yeah.
Honestly, I don't think I'd be able to do that. I'm a wimp. I don't want to die. I don't want to think about dying, so the fact that 3 brave people were willing to do that, and then, by whatever goodness there is in the world, they came out of it pretty unscathed.
Yeah, at least in comparison to many others.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah. Do you want to do...
No. They did so many crazy scenes. Like, one of them, I remember hearing about it probably around 2019 when it came out, was it specifically firefighters that were getting on the roof and using shovels, or was it just anybody?
I think it was hired people, yeah.
Hired people, okay. So they were told, like, I'm gonna bang this gong or whatever, and it's really loud, and that means you need to go out there with this shovel. You're gonna get something, and you're just gonna toss it over the edge. Do not go, like, east. You have to go west, because that's the safer area. And don't look over it, just toss it. Just looking over and seeing that, you're going to be getting way too much radiation. And we follow someone, and you can hear his breathing, and you can hear the Geiger meter, and he trips, and his boot or his pants rip. Like, oh my gosh, I was freaking out.
It's an incredibly well done scene that is insane amount of suspense, because I mean, it is terrifying.
Yeah.
And again, it's just sort of the idea that, like, the world around you is poisoned, and you can't see it, you can't touch it, you won't know it. Or if you do know it, things are really, really bad. Like, one of the worst signs is when you start tasting, I think, metal. Because that means you are in a boatload of radiation. And that's, of course, a lot of people are saying that when things are going on, because, that's what's happening. And so once you've seen, like, the consequences and the dangers, you start seeing, like, okay, here's what's going on here, here's what's going on there, and then, you know, you get to these scenes where it's just like, okay, we are well aware of the stakes, and they're still doing this, you know, like running with shovels and trying to do things. And a lot of them died young of, you know, cancer. Surprise.
Yeah. I also really liked the scenes with the scientist in the jury? That's not the word I'm looking for. In the courtroom. There we go. Where, like, he was clearly a scientist. So, he's like me. He kind of gets a little tongue-tied at times. He's very passionate about this. And he's the one who was prepared to die in the helicopter. So, he's passionate about this. And he has different visuals to explain everything. And, I was sold on everything he said, especially because, we've been with him prior in the helicopter and all that. And we know, obviously now, all the fallout that happened because of Chernobyl. But, it was spectacular. And I I felt bad that I would, but at the same time I don't. The actor who was, supposed to have been in the control room when Chernobyl exploded initially, and what was it? He was, like the head honcho. He walked out after yelling at the guys, saying, "Oh, you have to fix this. You know what to do. Open the booklet, and I'm gonna smoke a cigarette or something." And he walks out. And so the scientist is just like, that is not an excuse. You don't get to blame the guy who's been here for 2 months, was it? Because you walked away, and they were asking you for help. And all the other scientists who, who were in that room and survived, backed it up. They're like, yeah, he said, I don't know, I've never seen this happen before. I don't know, I don't understand. It's not in the booklet. This seems like it can't be real. And then, the head honcho's like, oh, it's not. It could never do that. Blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
And, oh, man.
It was a very, it happened. This is the danger of the tribalism politics stuff, where it's like, no, Russia's the best. We build the best reactors. Our reactor could never be bad. And it's not even just like a tribalism thing for nationalism. It's also just that's how,
society has formed them.
Yeah, well, that's also what you had to say and do to succeed and not lose your career.
Yeah.
Well, I think they were past the this wasn't Lenin, this was Gorbachev, so I don't believe it was
my bad.
There's some really, Russians have a great sense of humor, I'll give them that. There's some really dark but funny jokes from that whole era about, how things were. You hear a knock at the door in the middle of the night, and your neighbor says, "No, don't worry, I'm just your neighbor. It's not, the building's on fire, that's all." As opposed to being whisked away in the middle of the night. Nevertheless, it was still very much a political monster of a regime where, oh, are you a member of the party? Are you a friend of the party? Well, you of course we do no wrong. No, oh yes, everything's fine. No, things are fine. And that's a big cultural problem, and it led to tremendous damage.
Yeah. That show just, if you need a good cry, or if you like historical shows with dramatization, definitely recommend it. I don't generally like historical shows. I like fantasy. I like to be away from reality, but I also believe everybody, we need to learn from the past. We need to make sure we don't make the same mistakes. So, I'm not currently a manager, but when I was a manager, I had learned a long time ago of I always had to be willing to do the job of the people I was training. To the point, as stupid as it sounds, I apologize for this, I cleaned up dog poop that was tracked down 2 aisles. No, 3? whatever. And that was when I was a manager. Because I think, like, I can't tell someone else to do this because I haven't done it. And I don't think that's right. I don't think that's fair. I have to be willing to do the job of the people I'm training. Because otherwise I don't deserve to be here. That's always been my philosophy as a manager. So everybody knew that I cleaned up a lot of dog poop. So the next time it happened, they were like, well, Liz did it last time, somebody else has to do it now.
Lead by example and all that.
Yeah, lead by example, exactly.
But yeah, I don't know that I have much else to say.
We don't have a lot of time. I don't... Look.
I'm supposed to take my meds. We've been playing lots of Blueprints.
No, we're not talking about video games yet. That's going to be its own video.
The video about video games?
Yeah.
The games video?
Mm-hmm.
The video games video?
Oh, we didn't even talk about that kid.
In
Oh, okay. All right. So, for people that don't like animals dying, specifically dogs, there are scenes you will absolutely be skipping because him. So this kid, does he volunteer or is he voluntold? I don't remember.
I don't either.
He's with, this crew of people, and like one of the first things they do is give him this weird codpiece kind of thing, and he has to, put it on over all of his clothes to protect his junk, because, radiation, they don't want... Yeah. The group he's assigned to, they all have guns. And they've been told to go through these abandoned buildings, these abandoned areas, to search for pets that have been left behind. Because they're going to be radioactive. So they have to kill them. And like at first he can't do it. He's so sad, and the older guy who's been training him on it comes in and does it for him. But at one point he does come across puppies, and so he goes to his boss and he's just like, I can't. They were just born. Like I can't. And so the guy is like, yep, nope, son, you're fine. Go over there. There's an older dog. You're fine. He goes in and he handles it. I don't think it shows it. No. But, oftentimes you hear the shots, and you'll hear, like dogs whining if there's more than one in the scene, because, oh, what happened to my friend? So, I don't know how to pronounce it, I apologize. Pavel is the kid's name?
Yeah.
Once he gets a gun, just skip his scenes if that's going to be a problem for you. Because that's all he does, right? Is go around and shoot animals.
Yeah, well, because we're seeing the various things that are going on, because they have to, because the animals are basically ingesting and
all
covered
this
in
radiation.
Yeah, and so they're now carriers of the radiation.
And honestly, being shot in the head is a better death than slowly dying of your skin's falling off. So,
and all the other things.
As sad as it is a grace, I'm sorry, I feel like I'm about to cry. This show, man.
It was a trip. I mean, this is...
honestly, it is a good recommendation, because it's like...
Oh, yeah.
It does show, like, the evils of humanity, because of how horrible Fallout is, but also the amazingness that we get, because there are people who volunteer and who fight to try and save others and do all of this.
And again, it's sort of...
the duality of humanity.
A good point of the banality of evil is the fancy term, but just that, these people weren't evil in the sense that they absolutely 100% knew the consequences and were happy that it was going to kill people, or were just only caring about themselves. Absolutely. They just didn't even have the imagination or the understanding of, well, it can't be that bad.
Their beliefs in their government, their systems were so strong that there was no doubt in their minds.
Or that so a couple hundred people die, whatever. They can't even comprehend.
There were some politicians who felt that way.
Yeah, but my point being that they can't even comprehend that, it's not a couple hundred. It's so much worse. But not having that understanding, can be incredibly evil when you're like, well, you know what, I'm not going to lose my position over just a couple hundred people in some place after an accident's already happened. I'm sorry they're dying, but whatever, I'm not going to, throw away my career, when it's like, no, this is an entire portion of the world that may never be revisited again if we don't do something. Like, to be clear, for those of you who don't know your Chernobyl history, they put the sarcophagus on it, which was this giant concrete structure that encases the entire thing so that the radiation, which will take forever, quite literally, will be contained. And that was a huge multi-gazillion-dollar project. That had to be done. Because otherwise,
it's just gonna get worse.
Pretty much, yeah. Like, you couldn't just leave it as it was, so you had to build a literal coffin for this power plant to encase it in concrete and separate the world from it, so that people couldn't, not just people but animals. That would be the big concern. It's like animals
they'll stumble upon it and they'll become radioactive.
Yeah,
and it won't kill them immediately, so they'll leave.
And I guess I kind of always assumed that people know things, but just for those of you who are wondering, the problem with radioactivity is the particle matter. It's not like a poison or a bacteria, but it still feels like it spreads like one, because a tiny, tiny, tiny speck of radioactive dust can be incredibly dangerous. And that's the whole problem, is that you get covered with this super, like the dust that you would dust in your house every now and then. We're like, oh wow, it's gotten kind of dusty here. Like, that level of dust. Visible. Well, yeah, but even that, like, that level of dust is, like, lethal in this case, like, and so it doesn't even have to be that bad, and that's why there's always these big concerns about, like, well, you'll see people, like, they immediately rinse off in these incredibly high-pressure showers and things like that, because you need to do everything you can to get as many particles off of you as you can, because it is incredibly dangerous, and, there's, radiation's weird in that it's both significantly more and significantly less dangerous than people think, due to media and just the unintuitive nature of it sometimes. But yeah, like, on the one hand, there are animals that live in the area around Chernobyl, and there have been revised estimates of, like, maybe this area is not as bad as we thought. Obviously, this is before the whole war broke out. Okay, so maybe that's not as bad. But then there are other things where it's like, well, no, if you can see the elephant's foot, which is what they call the slagged reactor, you are probably dead. Like, there's almost no way you can view that with the naked eye and survive, because the amount of radiation that is pelting your body at that point has got to be just tremendous. So, yeah.
I remembered when they had the helicopters and they were trying to dump the water onto it. They were like, yeah, you have to come at it from this angle and, turn and then dump it. You can't go over it, but we have to hope that, the angle works. That was... And then I think one of them did actually crash, didn't it?
Yeah.
I don't... Was that real or was that dramatized for
No,
the
that
show?
was real. I'm almost positive that's real. So, like, to be clear, on the accuracy of the show, I've heard some complaints. I don't remember what they are. I think they're legitimate complaints. They're either objectively wrong, or it's like, well, hey, you could have done this. The show itself addresses some of the complaints one might have with it, which, as Liz already mentioned, like, this scientist is really a stand-in for multiple other scientists. Without their work, things would have been way worse, and shows pictures of them. But then there are other complaints about, like, well, they dramatized this scene, or they did that in this scene. Obviously, Russia wasn't a huge fan of the show. But yeah, I mean, I think overall, if you don't want to get into the politics of it all and the super accurate history, it's about as good a way as you're going to learn about it as anything, because it does a really good job of breaking down what's going on, what happened, how it happened, and the details they do get wrong, I don't think are material, or, like, I wouldn't cite this as a source if someone was like, okay, I need to know everything about the Chernobyl thing for, like, a science expo or whatnot, or if I had to, like, write a paper on it. But as a general knowledge thing, it's more than good enough.
One of the things that I actually didn't know that I did learn from this show, and I'm assuming was true because they had video in, black and white of what happened in reality, were those miners that were hired, or coal miners. I don't remember exactly what they were, but they were always covered in, dirt and grime because they're always in the tunnels. They were hired to come in and help because they needed access to. Was that so they could pour the concrete in? Was that what those? I don't remember.
Yeah, they were trying to pour concrete and get tunnels and get access and get underneath. There's all sorts of complex things kind of going on because of the physics of what was happening, where it was like, you can't just leave this alone and be like, well, okay, just cordon off the area. They had to actively do things because, yes, there were reactions that could occur, mostly with water hitting the reactor was the big concern, that would just make everything so much worse.
So, one of the things was they were getting so hot in these tunnels, and they couldn't have water with them, that they all started stripping. Like, they were just naked, butt naked. And the foreman, I don't know the correct term, was like, yeah, like, it's too hot. We can't handle this. Like, people are going to pass out, and we're not going to finish in time. You know, because the scientists told them, like, oh yeah, you know, you need to do this within like a week or something. And of course, when the scientist learns this, he's like, oh my god, no, like, even that little layer of clothes will be so much help with the radioactivity. It doesn't matter how far away you are, like, it'll be better to have it on your clothes than on your skin. And the foreman was like, we don't have a choice. You know, like, I've told my men that if they want to try, they can, and none of them do. They're here to help, and they'll help better if they're naked. Yep. And I was like, I had never heard about that, but yeah, they had footage of miners going in naked. Like, oh, it's so terrifying.
It is truly astonishing. So that's your uplifting cross-stitch video for the week.
Silo and Chernobyl. Okay, I'm just saying, I very much enjoyed both of those shows. Like, Silo was not real, thank goodness. Chernobyl was, but it's important to learn from past mistakes. So don't just pretend it didn't happen.
We now take you to Outro Wife being all giddy and happy.
Yay! And it's great because I opened this video by saying it was day 40 and then being really confused because it's day 80. I'm stupid.
And that's the end of For Heavenly Beasts Day 80. I got 6 hours and 24 minutes of footage. I forgot how nice it feels to start a new page and get a ton of work done. So, yeah. It went from, you know, barely having anything on the page to having a good base to go off of. I finished Starter Villain. 10 out of 10. Loved that book. Highly recommend. I want to read more by him because his sense of humor is totally up my alley. I also finished There Is No Anti-Memetics Division, and I didn't like it. That wasn't for me. And, like, I love horror. Like, I love the idea behind that book, and, like, the execution. So now I have to determine what book I'm reading next. I think I know what I want to read. Let me see if I can. I sent it to DJ on Discord. You can load. Blood Over Brighthaven by M.L. Wang. It sounds really cool, so we'll see if I can start it tomorrow, because I'm hoping to cross-stitch tomorrow. I don't think I have anything else, so like, subscribe, share, comment, all that jazz, and I'll see you guys in the next video.